Silat. So today we're going to take a look at a video from Ninjutsu. This one is actually from it was Sensei Masaki Hatsumi's video, and this was one of actually it's not his video, but it's one of his students who is displaying Bujinkan Ninjutsu. So I received this one, and basically the review was requested of this video to see the techniques and the different things related to ninjutsu. So, a full disclaimer here. I did ninjutsu for about a year, and yeah, about a year, about maybe 35 years ago. It was a really long time ago. Now, I can't say that my experience was bad. I'm not going to say that. I cannot say that my experience was bad. But I can also say that there were a lot of things within ninjutsu that were a little bit outdated. So, and since that time, it was something that I respected. I lived in Japan for many years as well, so I saw ninjutsu demonstrations and things like that. I went to the castle where the ninjas were before, samurai and ninja and stuff like that. So I got to see firsthand demos from people who practiced Iga-ryu ninjutsu, and really actually in the land of where it comes from. I never got a chance to meet the Sensei Masaki Hatsumi. Unfortunately, Hatsumi Masaki. I forgot. Sorry, I never had that opportunity, but I did get to see some pretty decent people doing demos, and they were very good at what they were doing. So I have a pretty decent knowledge of the system in order to assess something when I look at it. What I wouldn't want to do is look at something completely unknown to me and then try and say that this is what needs to be done with it. No, it's just these are my personal opinions, right? On these things, there's nothing to do with what has to be done in the system. Every system has its own way of doing things. But there are general things which are human body culture, warrior body culture, or combative body culture, which are prevalent throughout all systems. And there are certain classes of techniques where you can look at and you can say to yourself, okay, this can work regardless of which system you practice. This will probably work for you. And there's some things which are outright just not right. So it doesn't really mean because you studied a system or you didn't study a system that you cannot judge whether that system will probably work or not. No, you can't judge the details of the specific cultural aspects of the system. But when you look at the actual techniques and you break down the body culture behind them, you have a fairly good idea whether this is going to be good and work or not. That's what we're going to do here, and that's how I evaluate these kind of things, not from the perspective of running down systems, but generally looking at human warrior body culture and combative body culture and principles and see whether they are there and they're obviously there or not, right? Okay, so I'm going to share my screen with you, and then let's take a look at this ninjutsu. So let's go here and we'll jump in, take a look at ninjutsu here. So this gentleman, what is his name? So this is lessons from Masaki Hatsumi, and just as a cultural thing, Masaki is actually the first name, so it should be actually Hatsumi Masaki. Masaki is the first name; it's not a family name. Hatsumi is a family name, and in Japan, the family name comes first, and the first name comes afterwards, secondly. So this gentleman, he has got about 30 years of experience doing this. So yeah, okay, let's take a look at what he's doing and see what we can assess. All right. Okay, so right off the bat, you see something interesting. You see the way he moves. He has very dynamic and fluid movement, very aggressive, kind of forward dynamic, explosive movements. That's already a key characteristic of somebody who has an idea of how fighting is supposed to work. It's very explosive. Whereas somebody that you will see doing techniques that they trained, but they never actually fought with them before in an uncontrolled environment or an uncontrolled space, they usually don't have those kind of dynamic movements. And that's what I'm talking about when it comes to warrior body culture and human combative culture and movement, physical movement. You can identify certain characteristics of things, regardless of the systems that you look at. I really like the fact that he actually picks for specific details in close. One thing that you need to know is that when somebody comes in to hold you like that, when a man goes in to hold another man like that and try and, put his hands on his collar or his clothes or something like that, it's usually not for a killing blow. It's usually for a threatening type of situation. So if you use these type of techniques to counter something like that, you're probably going to be able to pull it off against regular people. Regular people whose pain threshold is relatively low. They don't have a lot of fighting experience, but they're very aggressive people. You'll probably be able to pull it off, especially if you go for specific pinpoint areas in the throat or in the side of the neck, and you know those pressure points. It will probably work for a lot of the unskilled, very aggressive, macho type of guys who actually are not in there for a killing blow, but more for an intimidation play. Very nice. Now take a look at this guy. I mean, he must be close to 60 years old, this gentleman. He he's really good for an older guy. Okay, to move like that, he's really good for an older guy. It's quite impressive. Look at his skin. This dude's at least 60 years old, maybe even a little bit older than 60. He moves really well for an old man. And there you go. There's your interception of the center line. So that is another thing that you'll notice within systems that focus a lot on combat and they understand how to actually fight, is that they enter in on center lines a lot in order to take out the person's momentum when they're coming directly in at them. You can only do this if you're going for the throat area, a throat area or a facial area. You can't do this if you're going for the chest area. It's got to be something more lethal. So that's something to keep in mind. It wouldn't work if you're trying to push somebody away, coming with frontal force, and you try and push away with your one hand on the chest. It will never work. But if you're going directly into the throat area or into the eyes with your like a tiger claw kind of movement, that's the only way you're going to make that work. So things like this, again, dead giveaways that the person actually knows how to fight. So these are the key things that you need to look for, regardless of the system that you look at. It doesn't make any difference. These are warrior movements and they function in all different systems. And this is the thing that I always tell my students, it doesn't make any difference really what system you learn. It makes a difference in how you train. And you see here in Ninjutsu, this guy trains properly, he trains his students properly, learned properly, and it doesn't matter if he is doing Silat, it doesn't matter if he's doing Kali, it doesn't matter if he's doing Ninjutsu, it doesn't matter if it's quote unquote traditional martial arts or not. It doesn't make any difference. The point is you understand human combative movement and you understand how to apply it under pressure in an uncontrolled environment. That's what actually is important. The way that you train, not the fact that you have one specific name on your system or this specific feature or whatever. It's quite irrelevant actually. So it's nice to see this in the quote unquote traditional martial arts world. And ninjutsu is one of those traditional, very traditional martial arts. So it's nice to see something like that. Mhm. Mhm. Now, that's something interesting to see when you're talking about speed in traditional martial arts. A lot of the times, especially in the MMA environment now, you'll hear a lot of people say that the traditional martial arts techniques for attacking with hands are not good. Boxing is better, or something like that, or some or Muay Thai or something like that is better. It's the ultimate fighting to use, or something like that. Now, we have to keep in mind that the purpose of the reason why you would use your hands in the old days versus now. Nowadays, most hand usage is focused on the empty hand part of things. But in the old days, the focus was mostly on bladed use of the hands. The hand would be armed with something, with a short sword, a long sword, a knife, a shuriken, or whatever. It doesn't make any difference. The point is that you are armed with something. And today, if you look on the street, most criminals are armed with guns or knives or something. They're not unarmed. So when you look at these kind of techniques, you always have to keep that in mind. Speed is there because that's what you need for a knife. So if you're holding a razor blade, you're holding a shuriken, you're holding a knife or whatever, and you're fighting, speed is more important than power because the knife is doing most of the work. So you don't need to have the most powerful punch. You don't need to have the biggest, most incredibly knockout blow. It's not necessary. The important thing is to hit your adversary as fast as you possibly can and get the first blow, because the first blow in an edged weapon combat is usually the one that's going to take the lead and then probably win. If you're not able to get that first blow, and that's why you heard that term first blood, it actually comes from old texts before. And when you draw first blood, it means you're probably going to win, because if you're able to catch that first blow in a correct area, I'm not talking about a first blow on a hand or something, but even that is seriously damaging psychologically. The person is, I mean, if it's really a deep gash, not like a little tap. I'm talking about a deep first cut. You draw first blood. You have mostly the advantage in that situation. So speed was more important for traditional martial arts than power was, because they were focused on weapons. And we see the same thing in Pencak Silat until today. Their focus is mostly on speed. It's not on power. Power secondary. Speed first to stun the person or to hit with your blade, to attack with your blade. That is mostly what the focus is on. And you see the same thing in a lot of traditional martial arts like that. Now, here we get into something interesting. This Tai Jitsu. This is Tai Jitsu. This is the supposedly what they say is the traditional empty hand fighting of the ninjas. Now, I have a problem with this because this Tai Jitsu, when I learned it, and I think it's the same because I what I learned was Bujinkan Ninjutsu, and that was, like I said, 30 something years ago. And I really didn't like the taijutsu part of it. I like the weapons part of it and stuff, but I like the grappling especially was great. But the taijutsu part of it with this empty hand stuff on top line, I really didn't fancy it very much because of the way that they moved with that open hand. I think it's called kamai or something. I don't remember the name anymore. But this type of open hand movements, I mean, who moves like this? Who attacks like that? Nobody. It's very strange to train like that on a consistent basis. And we spent hours doing things like this, where, somebody would come in with some weird one-handed type of maneuver to reach in and punch you. Who fights like this? This was my main problem with this taijutsu business. And I really didn't like that at all. Now, the counters, of course, are very good and they're very effective. If you can actually, smash somebody's collarbone or the side of their neck or something, these are great counters. But the initial attacks are just so ridiculously, circus oriented. I didn't really understand what was the purpose of those kinds of attacks, except to allow the other person to do their technique. It didn't really make much sense to me. I would rather that the person just tackle me and knock me to the ground, which is most probably what I'm going to be facing in a real life situation. They'll just tackle you and take you to the ground. That's mostly, or they'll take you and throw you up against a wall or something. You'll be winded, when you're thrown up against the wall and the guy's hand is on your shoulder and on your collar or something like that. But this one-handed kind of attack thrust thing, it never made any sense to me. And this was done so many times. This is interesting. This looks pretty decent. This man actually has some kind of a disability or something on his leg or something. He's not moving very well on his leg, but he still moves really well in the upper hand. But his footwork is not so good. He has some kind of a physical issue, I guess. It still moves great for an old man. Yeah, his fluidity and movement and everything is really nice. I like it. I really like it. Excellent. And did you see that? That is really, really good. To see that attack on the spine like that, that's really good. It's rare to see things like that. That's very good. And if you, again, if you're looking at concealed weapon usage and you pull out a blade, even a short blade, and you stab somebody directly in the back like that, you're not getting up anymore. Okay, you don't even, it's not killing the guy, but it's completely debilitating. And when you look at this from the perspective of this type of martial art at that time, and the same thing for Silat. You see techniques like that, and students always ask me, "What's the point of doing something like that? Why wouldn't you just kill him?" The reason is because you don't want to always kill your adversary. It's not always necessary. Sometimes what you want to do in a multi-adversarial situation, what you want to do is you want to injure them so that the other ones have a responsibility to take care of their person. They maybe wouldn't want to leave that person. That's, of course, assuming that they care about them, but you assume that they do care about each other. So the guy would not want to leave his buddy who is injured. So if you injure one of them, then the other ones have to deal with it to protect that person. It takes one or two or three men out of action. So that's a very huge advantage to you if you're looking at a multi-adversary situation. So one of the strategies is to seriously injure one of them, let them wail and beg for help, and then the other two guys maybe in the situation will be taken out of the situation, out of that equation because they have to help this guy maybe move to a secure location or something like that. So then you would have less people to deal with. So that is the strategy there. Another strategy which you would see a lot in the old Silat environments is that they would injure one person, and then when the other people come in to help, it's like a honeypot. It collects bees and bears and everything else. So you'd injure one person maybe from a distance, the person would start wailing and things like that. And then when the rest of them come in to assist that person, then they would be attacked while they're assisting. So this would be another kind of a trap that would be laid. That's why you see that old statements all the time that the old Pendergast used to say that war is deception, and this actually comes from the Prophet Muhammad peace be upon him, where he said that war is deception, and this is a part long history there. The old Pendergast used to repeat that all the time. War is deception. Don't fight people head on. My teacher used to hammer this into my head all the time. Don't fight head on because I'm a big guy. I used to always like to go head on, head to head, Rambo, blood for blood kind of situation. And he hammered that out of me, kicked the shit out of me all the time when I did things like that. Because you don't go head to head with people. Use strategy, use deception, go around, use the flanks, never go head to head combat. That's only a strategy to get people bogged down in one place so that other people can come and flank them and kill them. That's the way that you have to look at head to head combat. It's only to hold people down. It's not a strategy to win something. It's not, it should be your first option. It's only if you want to tie people to a specific location and not let them go. So it's a really different way of thinking than simply, like the whole martial arts kind of full out hero kind of thing. No, it's not the way that you want to operate in real life. You want to do as little of the hero stuff as possible because the focus is winning. The focus is not fighting in real life, at least. All right, let's get back to our video here. Oh no. Okay, we got a little more coming here. All right, let's get back to our previous one. Yeah, here it is. Okay, there's a lot of collarbone smashing going on here. A lot of pressure point work that this guy is doing too. I really like it, generally, really like the movement. Let's hear what he's got to say. Mm. This is another thing that bothered me when I was doing this Tai Jitsu business. The way that you see him tie up the arms over there, you can only do something like that against somebody who has really no training, no wrestling training at all. If they have even this little bit of grappling training or wrestling training, whether it's Greco-Roman or Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or MMA training or whatever, anything really on the ground system, these type of I call it Kung Fu Mantis style because that's what you always see with the Kung Fu Mantis techniques. Those type of things don't work very well because you're dealing with people who understand how the arms work, in close combat. So that's why it's more important, in my opinion, to learn how to wrestle or to learn proper grappling than it is to try and rely on these type of mantis style wrapping techniques. You can never pull something like that off on a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guy or a judo player or something like that. Even if they have 3 months of experience, you wouldn't be able to pull off stuff like that easily on them. They'll wrap you up so quickly. So don't focus on, in my opinion, I don't focus on, learning stuff like that for these kind of, don't train to fight idiots, basically. Train to fight more sophisticated adversaries. And things like this are good, but the wrestling component of it should be brought out more rather than just doing this mantis technique type of thing and then doing another technique afterwards and following up and everybody falls down and you think that you're Bruce Lee or something afterwards. It's not a smart play. It makes you have a false sense of security. This should be followed up actually with some actual wrestling type engagement, hopefully with the students. This gentleman is a little bit older and maybe he's not comfortable doing it anymore, but it should at least be explained and should be addressed clearly because people will start to believe that you can do this kind of mantis thing on people and it will just all work out. Actually, it won't. If they have even a month or 2 or 3 months experience in any real grappling system. Yeah, again with this wrapping thing. Yeah, you got to be a real dunce if you fall for that crap. You're somebody with really no training. Yeah. Hmm. Yeah, you see the breaks and the attacks onto the inside of the arms. So this is all good stuff. Altogether, I'd say what I'm seeing here from this ninjutsu training is really good stuff. And I wouldn't have any hesitation to advise somebody to go and learn something like this. This is probably better to learn than most of the crappy systems that you will see, like the regular karate systems or something like that, or the regular kung fu shops that you can go and learn something. This is probably ninjutsu under this group. This I forget the name of it, but Sensei Hatsumi's a group. I forget the name of what it's called. Oh, Bujinkan. That's it. The Bujinkan ninjutsu people. You're probably better off to learn something like this than you are to learn 99% of the regular karate or kung fu places that you see, in your regular strip mall kind of thing. So this is really good stuff, generally good stuff, and quite impressed with what I'm seeing. So um, good instructor, good system, all in all, A+ on my side. I like it. It's good stuff. A couple of things which I dislike, but all in all, not bad at all. Very good stuff. So anything you guys want me to review, whenever you want me to do these type of reviews, just let me know and I'll put in my 2 cents for all of them and I'll give you my opinions on what I'm seeing in front of me. No worries. All right, take care. See you all next week.